Hello everyone, myself Saranya, Assistant Professor from SNS College of Allied Health Science. Today we are going to discuss a topic about cardiac cycle. So, why this cardiac cycle is necessary and what does it does to our body? So, heart is an organ which pumps the blood to all parts of the body. So, continuous pumping needs a proper oxygen delivery and the waste removal. So, understanding the cycle which helps for the surgeons and the clinicians and the physicians or the students of the medical field can able to interpret the arrhythmias, murmur and the ECG changes of the heart, so that it is easy for us to find out the heart disease of a patient. So what is cardiac cycle actually is? So cardiac cycle is an eventual cyclic events which takes place in the heart for each and every minute. So one heartbeat is the time from the start of atrial systole to the next atrial systole. That means the atrium contracts and ejects its blood to ventricles, and the ventricles contract and eject its blood to all the parts of the body and the lungs. This cyclical process will be repeated every time. The two major phases will be covered here, which is systole and diastole. Systole means contraction and diastole means relaxation. Who are the key partners or the key players will take this role is atrium, ventricles, ECG, AV valves and the semilunar valves. These valves open, close, it will release the blood, it will control the blood. All these processes will together form the cardiac cycle. So what are the major events of the cardiac cycle? That is atrial systole and the pressure valves. Atrial systole and ventricular systole will occur, which will eject the blood, and finally the ventricular diastole, that is relaxation of the ventricles and the filling of ventricles will take place. The pressure changes opens and closes, and the valves will result in the ejection of the blood, and the sequential blood flow also plays a major role, where the artery and the aorta will eject its blood to all the parts and the lungs. This phases all together will comes under the events in cardiac cycle. So what could be the major ideal steps to be followed for atrial phases? Atrial filling is a major thing which takes place. So the atrial filling will causes a passive inflow of blood from the veins, where the atrial will get bulge over because of fulfill of blood, and the atrial will pushes amount to the ventricles through the opening of tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve. So the blood will be rushing into the ventricles. So for rushing of blood into the ventricles, we need to open a valve which is called as atrioventricular valves. These atrioventricular valves will open and it will start ejecting the bloods to other parts. So what could be the other steps which can come after the atrial systole as a ventricular phase, where the ventricular systole will take place. Before ventricular systole, it goes for an isovolumetric contraction where the ventricles contract, but since all the valves are already closed, the pressure will start generating inside, but the volume inside the ventricles will not be changed at all. So once if the pressure is more than in ventricles as compared to that of aorta, automatically the pressure releases the valves to open. So the semilunar valve is opening here. So once the semilunar valve is open, automatically the blood will start ejecting from the ventricles to the aorta and the pulmonary artery. So this phase is called as ejection phase, where the ventricles is ejecting the blood to aorta and pulmonary artery, where the aortic and pulmonary artery pressure increases and rises, which will automatically shuts the semilunar valve at the end of the ejection phase. This is what happening. So what could be the other phase of the ventricular ejection is an isovolumetric relaxation, where the ventricles will be at relaxed phase and all the valves are closed since the pressure drop occurs. And ventricular filling starts. When ventricular filling starts means it eventually says that there is an atrial contraction, where the atrium sends the blood to the ventricle so that only the ventricular filling takes place. So on that period, the AV valve has to open, the rapid inflow of blood occurs to the ventricles through atrial systole. The ECG correlation with the pace will be an P wave, QRS and the T wave will be the major timings here to be followed. Here in this image you can see that how the amount is coming from ventricular diastole, and when ventricular diastole is occurring, that is ventricle is filling, automatically atrial systole will be there, that is the atrium will be ejecting the blood to the ventricles automatically, and the isovolumetric contraction at the ventricular phase will occur, where all the valves will be closed and the volume of the ventricles will be same, but the pressure will be raised. Once there is an increased pressure, it causes the ejection, it helps for the ejection where the ventricular systole takes place. So how you can measure the heart sounds is through the valves. shutting and opening, and also the amount of blood that is ejected from the atrium, that is rushing of blood from the atrium, all produces the heart sounds. The first heart sound is produced by closure of an AV valve, and the second heart sound is produced by the closure of an semilunar valve, where the starting of ventricular diastole take place. So how much of time does the heart could take to make up this action is about 0.8 seconds. That is 75 beat per minute will be done with the help of cardiac cycle. So what are the things that is happening inside the heart is the pressure of the heart rises during systole and drops during diastole. The volume will be more in ventricles, and when the volume exceeds the threshold, automatically the valves open, the blood will be ejecting, resulting in the diastolic phase of the heart after the systole. These are the changes that could occur in the heart. Why does this matters? What we have discussed now, it's about how the heart is filling and ejecting the blood. And why does it matters is when proper filling and proper ejection is not at all possible, that includes as an heart failure, valvular disease and conduction defects. To identify the pathological side of the heart, it is mandatory to know about what is the physiological side of the cardiac cycle is, so that you can be able to understand the changes or the events that can delay or progress or discourage about the heart failure we can easily understood that. So what could be the summary phase I am discussing here is about the regulation of cardiac cycle is done through the sympathetic and parasympathetic and hormonal influence. Normally the heart will go for a two phase, which is called as diastolic phase and the systolic phase. The major component which takes during this is heart valves, conduction systems, and the clinical relevance to this is you can identify arrhythmias, and you can see MI or what are the other pathological side of the heart can be viewed with the help of the cardiac cycle. The importance of cardiac cycle is to give it because the cardiac cycle is the main thing which gives the circulation of the blood, nutrient delivery and the waste removal. Hope you have understood this topic. Thank you for listening.